for Life podcast. I'm Landon Thomas, joined by my co-host Shahnavaz Makhani. Shahnavaz, man,
what's going on?
I mean,
what's not going on?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. So, this past week the Mavericks have went 1-3. The back-to-back with the Nuggets, that series, and then the Pelicans. Disappointing loss there with the goaltend. Everyone, we can move past that.
Yeah.
But the Thunder game, that gave you some hope to not jump off the cliff, right? Because, there's no SGA, but like we were just talking, there's no Luka, there's no Lively, and all the injuries. So we're talking injuries this episode, and then the Mavericks have a brutal schedule coming up this week. Brutal. So Shahnavaz, where do you want to start, man? Injuries or the schedule or just things going on with this team?
I mean, you got to start, I think, with just the way what's been going on the last week or so. I mean, it's, for the Mavericks to lose, obviously, like you said, we'll move past the Pelicans loss because that's just gross mismanagement by the refs and just, I don't know. I don't know how you don't see that.
You know how much the refs make? They make a lot of money. They should not be doing this type of stuff, man.
I don't know how you don't call that. I mean, even go, and you know what?
Even call it so you can
call
review
it and then go back and look at it. Exactly. That's why the review's in place. That's why you have the replay assist in place. Is you make the call and then you can go back and say, you know what? It's not. It's the same way if if there's a shot that goes in at the buzzer at the end of a quarter, what do? They call, they call it, they review it, and then you can determine was it good or not? Did he get the shot off or not? It's just a situation like that. I mean, come on, man. It's just ridiculous.
But it is, and I said, let's not get into it. But it is.
It's infuriating.
It is. Because why can refs in replay center, why can they go back? Like in the beginning of the third quarter, they can say, hey, at the end of the second, a 3 was actually a 2 because the foot was on the line. Why can they do that, but they can't do in the final 2 minutes of a game, where things are really crucial to the outcome of the game?
Yeah, just go and say, okay, that was a goaltend. We're going to change we should have been awarded the basket. Mavs get a win. You can go back the next day and do that when the 2-minute report comes out.
Is that how? Well, yeah, exactly. But in the real time, is that how? And I'm all basketball. Is that how football does it? Within the last 2 minutes of a game, you can replay things.
Everything is reviewed in the last 2 minutes. Every scoring play, you can't review penalties, right? You can't challenge penalties or anything like that. But anything, if it's a scoring play, did he get 2 feet in bounds? Was he holding on to the ball?
Yeah,
always reviewed, always.
So that should happen in basketball. Any 100%. Scoring play,
100%
should be reviewed.
Yeah, dang. It's ridiculous. I mean,
like a ref challenge instead of a coach's challenge.
Yep, exactly. To be able to go back and
would you like that in the NBA?
Oh, I'd love that. This happens so many times. How many times have we seen this? And not just with the Mavs, right? We've seen it so many times where something should have been a foul and it wasn't. It should have been a goaltending, it wasn't. And they can't, quote unquote, go back and look at it. It's why not? You're the refs. You can do whatever you want. Come on, you're the front league office. I'm Silver. Come on, let's change this rule, man. It's ridiculous. But there's no point in crying over that game. I mean, that's a game the Mavs, should have won. So let's just say that they went 2-2 this week. But the Nuggets lost. I mean, especially Sunday being up, by as much as the Mavericks were last Sunday,
man,
to lose that game was brutal. I mean, that's a tough game to lose and to lose it by 11 when you have, such a big lead. But again, you're talking about a game, where you're missing Kyrie Irving.
But why do you think that is? Obviously, like you said, you were just alluding to, so Kyrie's out. But why do you think that is? When you lose big leads, what do you think attributes to this team losing big leads? Is it just Kyrie being out or having the leader out?
I think players. I put it on a lot, man. I think having the leader out definitely hurts, right? I think Kyrie is the leader of this team. I think we've seen it time and time again. The Mavericks play differently when he's on the floor. Right, even in a loss, you see a different Mavericks team when Kyrie Irving plays. So I think having your leader out definitely hurts. I think it's also on coaching. We give Jason Kidd, definitely we give him his credit, but we criticize him as well. A lot of people think that I don't criticize Jason Kidd, but I do. when the time is right.
Yeah.
And he definitely deserves criticism for that Nuggets loss. He deserves criticism for both Nuggets losses. For whatever the play call was to have Spencer Dinwiddie going ISO for 20, and holding the ball for 20 seconds is ridiculous. Like, you've got to have something better drawn up, even if Kyrie Irving's out. Like, you've got to have, schematically, you need to be better. And that's something that, look, Jason Kidd relies on a lot on Kyrie and Luka to be the players that they are. And that's fine when you're a coach that has both of those players. But when they're out of the lineup, you've got to put your X's and O's knowledge to the test. And you've got to figure out ways to get Quentin Grimes open, get Klay Thompson open, stop letting Spencer Dinwiddie ISO every possession down the floor. Like, some of it's just maddening to watch over and over again. And third quarters for this team, Landon, are just brutal. I mean, I don't know. It's like even against OKC. I mean, we saw the Mavericks.
Yeah, the Thunder one was a bad one.
You go into halftime with what, a 20-point lead, and here comes the third quarter, and you're down by 4 going into the fourth. And it's like every third quarter, it's like, what is this? Like, I don't understand. It's so, and that's with Kyrie. So it's not like it's any different when he's on the floor, I think it's just the third quarter problems. But yeah, look, when the Mavs losing big leads, I mean, I could say it's Kyrie, but then again, we saw them lose the lead to Oklahoma City with Kyrie. So I don't know what the reasoning is behind it. I think it's I think the Mavericks just go cold. It seems like every third quarter, they can't hit a shot to save their life, and they rely on the three especially when it's hitting in the first half.
I think
you come
that's
out in the second and you start bombing threes, but you've got to realize when they're not going in, start getting in the paint.
Yes.
I think Brian Damaris said it on the broadcast, on the radio broadcast, listening to the game on the way home on Friday. And he said, good things happen when you get in the paint. And the Mavericks just weren't doing it. They're just chucking up threes, and Oklahoma City was hitting them, and Dallas wasn't. And Oklahoma City got back in the game. And so the Mavericks just have to be better from all points. The players have to be better. Jason Kidd's got to be better, especially with, trying to manage this roster with all the injuries that they have. You've got to put your players in a better position to succeed. And just having them hoist up threes and Dinwiddie ISOs, that's not going to get it done.
Yeah, I think, holistically, I think there's like 3 things when you look at that. Like, one, you said coaching. Jason Kidd, we criticize him when he does bad. And, it's a good thing and a bad thing when he allows his players to play through moments like that, because they are learning and they're growing and they're building for scenarios in the playoffs where you can't take timeouts all the time, because every single timeout you make is very crucial, because at the end of the game of a playoff game, you don't want to have 0 timeouts. So you're building your players' growth on those type of moments. But at the same time, it's the regular season. Like, you got to call timeouts when I understand like a 8-0 run, let your players play through it. But like you said, when a 20-point lead goes, when it's eventually you're down 2, you're down 4, you can't wait till you're down 2, you're down 4. You gotta wait. Okay, hey, a 20-point lead just went down to 8 points. So let's call a timeout and let's reset and let's understand why we are losing the lead. And I think that leads to the second point. I'm glad you said it, so I don't even have to elaborate on it, is the team does not go inside the paint. When you're watching that lead evaporate, you're still watching the team play like they did with the lead, shooting threes. And that's, I think, where you do have a leader like Luka, he will go in the paint. And that's why I think you're missing with Luka, is because Kyrie, he gets players involved, but at the same time, if those players aren't shooting, they really don't have a guy who can dominate inside the paint. Like, you'll see moments of Kyrie as a guard, he can post up. You see PJ Washington have moments where he can post up. But when you look at the roster, they really don't have a guy like Luka who can really, manipulate his defender by posting up mid-range, whatever. He can do anything on the court offensively. So I think they're really missing Luka, and I think they're also missing Dante Exum. I said this earlier in the season. Dante Exum is your wild card for this team, because I know he had his moments of, disappointment. But if you look at the totality of his season last year, especially the month of December, it was amazing, because what he does really well, obviously defends 90, but he gets in the paint. And I think that's the problem, because when you talked about Spencer, although I do kind of get it with Spencer because he is the only one, especially in those games without Kyrie, who can dribble.
Yeah.
And that's sad to say because these are NBA players. These are so talented. But I'm talking about dribble really good. And I'm not talking about just average. I'm talking about he can actually dribble, because when you look at Hardy, he's the guard. He struggles dribbling the ball and on ball handling. And then you look who else? Quentin Grimes. He has moments, but he's not a ball handler.
Najee is not like a primary ball handler, right? PJ can bring
Najee's not. He's a distributor.
Yeah.
PJ, he's a distributor and a little floater. And a 3-point shooter. So that's why I'm saying, like, they really miss Exum, who can ball handle. He can distribute. He can score when you need to. Like, I think obviously PJ Washington is your X factor. He's your glue guy. He's everything that you need. He's the engine of this team. But I think Exum is really, really, really underrated when he's healthy. Like, when he's healthy, he is everything you need. He's like a 5-tool player. Like, he can do everything. He can do everything at least average, and he doesn't have flaws when he's healthy. And I think they're missing that.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, it just adds to the laundry list of injuries for this team, right? Now Dwight Powell goes out, Jaden Hardy goes out on Friday, against the Thunder. So it's just another, with Luka out, Kyrie still, which game is he going to play? Which game is he not going to play? Derek Lively being hurt. I mean, this team is just ravaged by injuries now.
Perfect segue. Injury.
And it just, like, when you've got, we saw it happen against Oklahoma City. You don't have a viable other option at center. So Daniel Gafford's got to play, and then he gets into foul trouble. And then it's like, okay, now you got to go small ball and put Maxi at the 5 or PJ at the 5. And
they also put Powell and he got hurt.
And then Powell gets hurt, right? And my point is, like, we've talked about the depth of this team for a long time, and we've seen the benefits of it. But when you have this many injuries, now it's like, now you're starting to, it's starting to hurt. It's starting to hurt this team.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Does Lively's injuries concern you?
I don't want to say I'm concerned yet. I think he's still young. He's 20 with a body type like that. Like, injuries are going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't think I don't think it's going to be like an Embiid situation where he's just constantly out every game. I'd give it another year, right? Like, let's see what happens the rest of I mean, some of these injuries that he has are freak accidents, man. He's coming down on Jokic's foot, and sprains his ankle. Like, that's just it happens in the course of a game. Like, it's not like he has plantar fasciitis or, jumped down and injured his knee running up the court. And, I don't think you can label him injury prone, because a lot of the injuries that he's had have been kind of just random, like through the course of a game, stuff happens. Him getting hit in the head or falling over a player, falling over Kyrie last year, right? Like, that's how he got hurt. Like, it's kind of it just happens within the game.
And then the nose.
And it's like, unfortunately, it just happened. It's not like, I wouldn't say it's concerning yet. I think it's just kind of like, it's like, why does this happen to us kind of thing?
Yeah.
Like, why can't we have good things in Dallas? But look, now the depth of this team is being tested, right? With all these injuries. I don't know I don't know how long Powell and Hardy are going to be out, because Hardy was playing well. I know you mentioned his ball.
Let's talk about that, man. That has to be tough. When you're balling, you get injured. Yeah. You come back, you start getting the groove, you get injured again.
Yeah. He's averaging 12 points over his last 10 games, like off the bench. Like, good numbers, man. I mean,
with great efficiency. The ball handling has been terrifying, because it's like you can't play him and Spencer at the same time, because defensively it's awful, and Hardy still, you have to have Najee or somebody in there.
Yeah, Hardy feels like he like forces to, or not forces, but he gives up the ball too many times. Like, he's creating too many turnovers,
and that's the problem, because I think he's really good, but he's in the wrong type of play style. Like, when he's a shooter, when he's a Jet Terry, or he's just like a jump shooter role. Like, I like Klay Thompson. Like. Yeah. Obviously, we're talking 2025 Klay Thompson, but like, I like how he plays for a jump shooter. Like, his first priority is look for a jump shot.
Yeah.
And then he will dribble if he has to. And I think, like you just said, Hardy, he tries to create offense when his ball handling is not Jordan Clarkson or Jamal Crawford,
Yeah, I think he's trying to do too much. and some of the
But he's a great
mistakes.
shooter.
He's a great shooter, but some of the times he dribbles and tries to do other things, and he's like, it seems like he has 3 or 4 a game. These turnovers that just are, you're kind of like scratching your head, and you're like, why? Like, why are you doing that? Like, why are you dribbling off your foot? Like pass the ball.
Yeah.
But it's unfortunate because Hardy's been playing well the last 10 games. Like Dwight Powell, say what you will, but with all the injuries to Lively and Gafford, he's a necessity now. Like that's why you have a third big, right? That they're players of that
and
size.
Maxi. Can you trust him playing that many minutes?
No, like you can't. And like Dinwiddie playing 38 minutes against Denver. Like I know Jason Kidd said he wanted to only play him like 20 minutes, or 20 to 30 minutes, and you had to play him 38. Yeah. Like that's not helpful for Dinwiddie either, or any.
Yeah.
When you're playing this many minutes back to, like, these players aren't used to playing that much, right? So it's kind of it's a trickle down effect of all these injuries that are happening, and really, that's why I said my New Year's resolution for this team was good health. And it's definitely not helping. It's not, maybe that's my fault, but it's like you just can't catch a break because it's every game something's happening and somebody's hurt. Yeah. And Luka goes down, and we saw the Mavericks play respectably well without him before Christmas, and after that I think you and I both had a sense of, okay, the ship's not going to be sinking. Like the Mavericks just have to hold their head above water. But then Kyrie gets hurt, Lively gets hurt. Now Powell, now Hardy. Now it's like, okay, I mean, do you trust Jason Kidd to come up schematically without Kyrie, like to be able to put this team in a position to win? Like that's kind of the question you have to ask yourself now as you get into the end of January and into February. Because I think by all accounts, Luka's not going to come back before the All-Star break. So you're talking, another month probably with him out? I mean, you can't rush him back from a calf injury because that just leads to more problems, right? So, I mean, I don't know, man. Like this is kind of and the past schedule is not going to do any favors for them either, as we get into the end of January. So this is going to be a really, really tough spot for Dallas.
Yeah, I think criticism is fair when it comes to the kid, but, and I'm not defending him, but like you have to know what you're criticizing him for. Like he is a relationships coach. There's 2 type of coaches. You want a guy who can manage his players, or you want an X-nose. Like, it's rare to have both because Kidd, he is so valuable with having stars, with Luka and Kyrie, and making sure that people know they're the stars and everyone else are role players. Like, he's really good at getting that point across, but in a good way. Like, where players are like, yeah, you're right. Instead of just like, no, I want the ball. Yeah. Like he always says, hey, for success, players need to know their roles and be stars in their roles. And they know that these are our guys. Kyrie and Luka are our guys, and Klay is a guy that you have to follow. And he sets the tone. He makes sure everyone's good in the locker room. He's a former player, so he knows what they go through. A lot of X's and O coaches weren't players, but they're so smart at taking advantage of their opponent. And that's why they're X's and O's coach. And Kidd's not that. So if you criticize Kidd for not calling the timeout where the team is making a run, that's fair. He needs to be 100%. Criticized for that. But if you're criticizing, dang, we're not doing good at plays with Kyrie and Luka out, of course, duh.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the kind of coach he is. And I've seen it like, Rick Carlisle would have done better, or Jamal Mosley would have done better.
Of course.
Yeah, that different coaching styles. But Rick Carlisle is not the coach here for a reason. Like the relationship he had with Luka was not good.
Managing stars, yes.
Right? Like he was not good at it. So
that's why he always does good with role players.
Yep, 100%. Like the Pacers don't have. I mean, you can say Tyrese Halliburton's a star, but he's not on the level of a Kyrie or a Luka, right? So Carlisle's done and hats off to him. He's done a great job with the Pacers, but there's a reason it didn't work out here.
Yeah, and they're struggling still. I mean, that's why I'm in like superstars.
Yeah,
because Halliburton is a star. He's an all-star, but superstars, they come with big egos, and to get superstars to align with each other is a special trait that's understated, underrated, and it's a trait that's very valuable to have, especially in Dallas, especially with a GM like Nico, who's always willing to make a move. And you got to have a great manager who's very flexible and has a gift of getting to his players. And that's, if you talk to every player, which we have, in these press conferences, obviously in the hallways too, like everyone loves Kid. And it's not just the Mavericks, it's opposing players love Kid. They love
Yeah.
playing for him because he gets them. But also, if other teams are making runs and he's not doing what just the basics, then criticize him all you want because we just did.
Yeah, and the timeout stuff is infuriating because I've always thought of it of like if it's a 20-point lead, like if it gets close to cut in half.
Because Carlisle, he always called timeout. Sometimes you're like, dang, they just made a couple baskets.
Yeah, sometimes it's too quick, right? Like that's the thing. You gotta thread the needle and kind of find that fine line between, when should you call the timeout, when should you not? That's
why Mosley is so good. I miss Mosley.
Yeah, me too.
But Kyrie, you got to have Kid. You have to have Kid.
Yeah, because he loves Kid. That's his idol, Yeah. And the thing that really, for me, is the most troubling is when we've seen Luka and Kyrie out, just the ISO ball, with Spencer. Yeah. And maybe it's just recency bias.
And that's on Kid too. But at the same time, who else is going to try to get a bucket?
That's true, but like you've got to be able to draw up something. Like you got to put your players in a pick and roll,
and that's my point that I always made in the offseason. Like Kid is the perfect coach for this team, and yes, I'm not scared to say that because he manages stars, and and he's in. Kyrie and Luka love Kid, and Nico has a relationship with Kid, and the new CEO from the Warriors, he has a relationship with Kid. Kid is the right coach for this team, but my point has always been get X's and O's assistants.
Yep.
Get the top tier X's and O's assistants. So you have Kid, who's the manager. You can have Dudley, who's a great. He's actually a great coach overall, and then have 2 or 3 guys that just are brainiacs. They're just nerds who love drawing up plays and schematics of the game.
Yeah, I mean, and if that's what needs to happen, I mean, that's fine. I don't doubt that Jason Kidd's the right coach for this team. I think to your point, managing stars is more important. Especially when you have 2 superstars like Luka and Kyrie who want him here. I think at the end of the day, that's all that matters. He's not gonna go anywhere if Luka and Kyrie don't want him to. So all this talk, every week of let's fire him and it's a moot point because he's not going anywhere, regardless of how you feel. As a fan, because the 2 best players on this team love him to death, and so unless they want him gone,
and the GM is very close with him.
Exactly. So
he's not going anywhere.
And it is frustrating, and and the Mavericks have to be better. Like the players have to be better, the coaching staff has to be better, especially with what they've got coming up in the next couple of weeks. Like this is not going to be. We talked about the rough stretch of games, at the beginning of January. The end of January is no cakewalk either for this team. I mean, they're going to have to really put it together. And really hope for Kyrie to stay healthy because they're going to need him down the stretch.
I agree. And the only thing I said that was because, Spencer, when you have like 5 ISOs in a row, okay, that's crazy. But at the same time, when I look at it, with the players on the court, are you going to have, you saw what happened when Klay Thompson had an ISO. You saw, Grimes has to be in the groove to get a mid-range. Like he's not going to go to the basket, or he's not going to do he's not going to do stuff that you see Kyrie and Luka and creators do. Like he gets in a rhythm where, okay, I'm on fire, I'm going to try things, but like when you look at it, Kid really doesn't have a lot of creators without Luka and Kyrie and Exum out. So there's like Spencer try to get us a basket. Half the time it works, but when it doesn't work, it looks bad.
Yeah. And it's
very bad.
And it's just frustrating because it's like, if I feel like even in some of these losses, like the Mavericks are right there, or like they have a chance to win. I mean, obviously the second Nuggets game was different because Jamal Murray just went nuts, and there's nothing that the Mavs could do to stop him.
Yeah.
But it's like some of these games where it's like you're losing by 4 or 5 or 6, and you're in a position to win or take the lead, and they don't. It's just kind of frustrating because it's like even with these injuries, they're right there. Like you can see some of those wins. So I don't know if it gives me hope or if it gives me if it puts me on edge, like to be and I'm nervous. Like it's kind of depending on the game. I don't really know how I feel.
Yeah, I agree. It's And that's the fun of the season. That's the fun part of the season, the ups and downs. I know, fans don't want to see that. They want to see a dominant run like the Cavs or like the Thunder. But at the same time, when you have injuries, I know, and I'm gonna give this team time. I'm not saying go trade everybody. And you see, I don't even like rumors at this time, so I'm not even gonna put names out there. But like, be careful what you ask for, because when one of those players are gone, you're going to see how important they were to
Yep.
the team healthy. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think with injuries, it's clouding the realization of how good this team is, because when they were healthy, the Mavericks had if not the second best, they had the best 5-man lineup, the starters. They were like a 23 net rating with Kyrie, Luka, Clay, PJ, and Lively. And then you had Gafford playing well. You had Hardy having the moments. You have Najee cooking.
Mm-hmm.
And you see it when they're healthy. But when you see 2 stars out, even 1 star out, like, it's either going to be everyone's making their shots, or it's just going to be like, well, dang, we need to make trades. But at the same time, you don't, because when this team is healthy in the month, you're going to see, dang, this team is good.
I
So
mean,
you have to be careful with the trade deadline.
they were the best team in basketball when everyone was healthy. Like, there was a stretch there.
Yeah.
You've written. I know you've written your chapters. I mean, chapters 3 and 4 were that 20-game stretch. I mean, they were the best team in the NBA before leading up to Christmas for a month and a half. So we saw what this team can do when healthy. I completely agree with you. Be careful what you wish for is the right way to say it, because the certain names that are being floated out there, when healthy, you're talking about very critical pieces that helped this team get to the finals last year. And
exactly.
So
don't make too many moves too quick.
Yeah, you can make one wrong move that'll tear that all down.
Phoenix Suns.
Yep, there's your example, right? You can make one wrong move that it's a trick. Then you've got to make more moves to recover from the bad move that you just made, right? And you've got to do everything to kind of cover that up, and then there you go, your season's lost. So I think it's really hard to determine right now, like, what this team needs and what this team is. I know the trade deadline's in a month or so, but it's really hard with everyone kind of injured. The Mavericks, unfortunately, just, it feels like, can't get through a stretch where they've just got their players healthy. It's kind of unfortunate. I mean, when they were the best team in basketball, and then your best player goes down, and it's kind of, and then you start, Kyrie's dropping, Derek Lively gets hurt, Powell gets hurt, Hardy gets hurt, and now it's like, okay, now you've got to start getting folks back. Like, you need X to come back. You need Kyrie to stay healthy. And the other problem with that, Landon, is you don't want to rush Luka back. Like, you want to be in a position where you can bring him back along comfortably, because calf injuries are no joke. I said it before, like, that's what led to Kevin Durant tearing his Achilles in the finals a couple of years ago. He had that initial calf injury. So the Mavericks have to manage
especially
that
regular season.
Well. Yeah, I mean, it's like, you just get in the playoffs. That's all you need.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I mean, Kevin Durant was a different story. But like, for the Mavs, it's regular season. Like, you got plenty of time. Obviously, they're floating around 7, 8, but if you win 2 in a row, you'd probably be like 4th seed. I mean, it keeps fluctuating the standings. So like, you have plenty of time. It's at the midpoint of the season, but you can't wait too long, but you have to wait. I agree with you. I mean, Luka's already missing MVP, all NBA. So just wait until he is ready, and not even ready, but playing shape ready. Because there's one thing to be cleared, but then you also have to get back to what you were, at least relatively back.
Yeah, and they're 2.5 games out of the 4 seed. So
there you go.
4 through like 9 is like all separated by 2 or 3 games. So
that's crazy.
You go on a little mini winning streak, and the other teams around you start dropping. I mean, you can see them go all the way back up to home court. So they just kind of, and they've been in these games. Like, most of these games that they've lost, they've been right there. And it's kind of just, it's some of these losses that are infuriating, and giving up the leads. You want to see the Mavs win comfortably. When they have a lead. Not every game should be a. My Apple Watch is going off telling me I've got high heart rate because I'm freaking out during the game.
Yeah, and that's why I want to see this team be more balanced. I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but I want to see more points in the paint, and I'm not talking about just offensive rebounds or dunks. I'm talking more low post Lively when he's back. Get some more hook shots. I want to see PJ post up and do his floaters because he's really good when he does that. You see it when they play the Thunder, they give him the ball and he goes to work. I want to see more of
Dominates.
that in regular games. And then Najee get back to his floater. He did a lot of floaters at the beginning of the season. He was cooking.
Yeah.
So I want to see him get back to cooking. Just stuff like that. I want to see more movement in the offense instead of kicking and make threes because, like you said, it works half the time, but then you lose leads because of that.
Yeah, and you don't know if the other, like Oklahoma City got hot in the third quarter from 3 and the Mavericks were cold. You know, if you push the ball in the paint, that they don't come back as quick, right? Because then they've got to be a little bit more careful. You're missing those threes, and that's leading to transition threes and easy buckets for the opponent. And that seems to always happen against the Mavs. Other teams running in transition. That's kind of how they come back. So if you're getting the ball in the paint, that also lessens those lengthy rebounds. That teams are getting, and puts you in a position where now your centers, who are the combination of them is like one of the best centers in the league. When you put Lively and Gafford together, now your centers have better chances of rebounding those balls because even if they're in the paint, right? If you're missing layups or missing floaters, but if you're missing threes that hit off the rim or the backboard and are flying back out to the wing, it puts you at a disadvantage when the other team's able to run down the court and hit open threes or easy layups.
I agree. So Shahnavaz, last word of the podcast. When you look at this schedule, man.
Oh boy.
I mean, they got the Hornets next. Hopefully you take care of business, but that's not an easy cakewalk. I mean, they're always competitive, especially LaMelo. He's hooping out of this world. And then they have the Timberwolves, Thunder, and Celtics. Those 4 games this week.
Brutal.
And you just talked about all the injuries. I mean, when you look at this schedule, what comes to mind? And then also, what would you like to see from the Mavericks in this schedule, in this week?
I mean, I just want them to be competitive. Like, you can't have another loss like you did to Denver where, you're giving up another, 45 points to Jamal Murray. I mean, you can't let Shea do that. You can't let Ant do that. You can't let Tatum do that. I mean, the Mavericks, I want to see them actually be in these. They may not win all 3 of them. There's a very likely chance that they won't. Yeah. But if they can sneak one win out of all those, if they can go 2-2 in this next stretch, going into next week, that's kind of ideal, right? We've talked about, we just want the Mavs to kind of hold their heads above water until they get their pieces back.
Yeah.
With Kyrie, like, I still think the Mavs can be in any game, but I want to see them be more consistent and at least don't let these other opponents or these star players on other teams have career nights against you. I mean, we saw Jamal Murray do it, and then we saw DeJounte Murray do it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like you've got to defensively, they've got to be better against star players, but just be consistent and just be in the game because you never know what could happen towards the end of the game. So if the Mavericks can just keep themselves in some of these tight matchups, I think if they can go 2-2 in the stretch, I think that's going to be a success.
Yeah, that would be great for them going 2-2 in that stretch. Especially when they have Wizards, Pelicans, and Pistons after that. But the Pistons are good this year. They're competitive too.
Cade Cunningham, man, I told you beginning of the year.
Yeah, you did, and then you can't even look past the Pelicans. They just whooped you. So it's like this schedule. You have to go game by game. Yep. You can't even go by stretches, but just we have to since we covered this team. But they have to just take it game by game, and I want to see just the team be more balanced. I already said that, but even Kyrie, because Kyrie, he's one of the best finishers of all time, especially for his size, in the paint. But you notice with the back sprain and he does not get a good whistle. So it's like he doesn't go in the paint as much this season as last season. But just for caution and just how the team is playing. But it's crazy to see that. You also want the team to be competitive, but you also want to, be careful with injuries because we've talked about the injuries, but you don't want more. And that's why I feel like, because when I'm just saying this because when I'm seeing these games, it might not look like it on TV, but Kyrie falls hard.
Yeah, he does.
He's because he's one of the smallest, but he's still 6'1", 6'2". And he goes in the air. He has some jumps. He has some bunnies. So when he's making these acrobatic finishes, and he's not getting a call either. He's falling hard, and you could see the agony in his face when he's putting his body on the line. He already got a back sprain. He's putting his body on the line, and to not even get a call.
That's
You know,
ridiculous.
when you see Kyrie making expressions like when he went at Caruso, when you see emotion, because he's calm, cool, collected, and that's what the team feeds off, because they never panic, just like Kid. They never panic. But when you see him making that expression like a Luka always does, that has to hurt.
Yeah, definitely.
So I just want to see more balance, but I don't also want more injuries. So it's tough. So you want to see the team make shots so they don't have to do that. But when they do that, they continue shooting, and that's when leads go away.
That's where the leads evaporate.
So I just want to, so basically play consistent defense. So then your offense just comes in flow. But play consistent defense, because their defense has not been as good as it was. But then you say injuries. So it's tough. I just want to see the team healthy and keep building. It is good to see Maxi playing better. But I think if you do make a trade, since we're coming up in that, a few weeks, if you do make a trade, it has to be, to me, I know you said it, you touched on it a little bit. It's hard to pinpoint, but I think a backup 4, where you can really succeed in small ball, because teams have figured them out playing bigs. Like, we haven't seen many lobs. And I think that does develop Lively more, because you're seeing a lot of hooks and you're seeing Gafford dominate lesser opponents. But, I think they really need a backup 4, because you also can't play PJ Washington like he's with under the Knicks coach Thibs. Like you can't play him 40 minutes a game. Like
running into the ground,
because you don't want injury. So I love PJ, but you can't play him that long. Like you got to have, and you can't depend on Maxi's health. Like he's doing good right now, but eventually, just from the history, at some point he's not going to be able to play. So like you got to have some consistency there. Unless OMax
played well. OMax played really well against Oklahoma City.
That should be the final word. OMax,
baby.
What do you think about OMax and his opportunities? We've been talking about this all year.
Yep, you take advantage of the opportunities that you've been given, and boy, he did. He played extreme. I mean, that's probably the best game I think he's played. I mean, 7 points in 9 minutes. He had the poster dunk as well. I mean, I think if he can, we've talked about him. Is he the
meaningful minutes?
Meaningful minutes. Is he the Maxi replacement? Right? Like, is he the backup 4 that the Mavs are looking for? Right? Like, do they need to make a trade, or can OMax be that guy?
I want you to be Nico right now. What is going through your mind? I know Kid is the one who gives the minutes, but roster construction, if you're Nico, do you look for a backup for a Maxi replacement outside of your team, and then OMax doesn't play at all? Or do you got to or do you look for other areas of your team and say, hey, because him and Kid talk all the time. Hey, OMax is playing really good in his opportunities. We might want to see if we have the Maxi replacement in-house and give him more minutes.
It's a tough question. I think if you're Nico, you have to look at it 2 different ways, right? Do you risk putting OMax in that situation when you're trying to win a championship?
Yeah.
And if you don't make a move, right, then you're relying on OMax and Maxi. So you've got to be confident that OMax is ready for that.
Okay.
Right. And then the other side of it is, if you do make a move, he's not going to play as much. So does that stunt his development a little bit? Right.
He's a first round pick. I mean,
I think it's going to come down to where the Mavericks are in the standings. Like if they're middling around the play-in, I think you can confidently give OMax minutes, because that, okay, look, this season we've been injured. Like there's a very likely possibility we're not going to make it out of the play-in come, if the Mavericks fall back another like 4 or 5 games by a trade deadline.
Pat McAfee and punting?
No. I'm not saying punt. I'm not saying punt the season, but then you've also got to is making a move then and giving up valuable assets.
Oh, yeah.
Is is this the right time to do it, or do you wait till the offseason to do it? Right? Like that's if Luka comes back after February and still, before if he's not, or let's say he comes back and he's still not healthy, right? Or God forbid Kyrie gets injured, Luka has a setback. Like, you've got to be realistic in how you approach the trade deadline. And Nico's a smart guy. Like, Nico's not going to go out and make a move that is going to cripple this team in the offseason and take away future assets, right?
Or the chemistry.
Like, there's a lot that goes into it. So do you really need to go? Like, he's going to be in a position to determine, do I make a move for this season, or do I wait until the offseason and say, everyone's healthy,
go all in?
Let's go all in for next year. Last year of Kyrie's deal,
we're extending. We're getting Grimes back. We're paying him. Stuff like that.
That's going to be, that's going to be key. Going in next, it's going to be hard. I think it's going to depend on where the Mavs are in the next couple of weeks. Like, if they're hovering around 4 or 5 seed, they're out of the plan. They're playing well. Everyone's healthy. They're getting. Then you go for it, right? When you've got a chance, you got to go for it.
You have to.
But if you're middling around the play-in, they're hovering around 500. They're, we're talking they're 2.5 games out of 4th right now. But if they're 5 games, 6 games out of the 5 seed, the 6 seed, Nico's a smart guy. Like, Nico's going to be like, look, maybe a move here or there, but nothing that's going to be too crazy, because it's just realistically not going to work. Like, we may get hot in the playoffs, but do you really want to give up valuable assets for a pipe dream, Yeah.
And that's what sucks about being a first round pick on a great team.
Yep.
Because you really can't develop like other first round picks can, the end of the first round, because you're a first round talent, but you're going to a great team that doesn't need you. So, and that's what sucks, because I'm in the boat. If OMax is playing well, you play him minutes, like even over Maxi. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's where I'm at, because I think I agree with you. If everyone gets healthy and they get a stretch of good wins where, hey, we're in the 4th seed or 5th seed, and we're only a couple games back of 3rd seed, I don't know if the Rockets are going to keep this up. I don't know if the Grizzlies are going to keep this up. They might fall. Everyone goes through a stretch of bad games.
Well, if the Mavs are moving up, somebody's moving down, right? So
exactly. Yeah, someone's going to have bad stretches. It's just Mavs are doing it now because injuries. And I know you rather do it now than later, yada, yada. But I'm saying when it comes to OMax, he's a first-round talent, and he has the body. He has the ability. Like, he has the prototypical athlete body. Like, he's like Derek Jones. You could watch him be like a Derek Jones Jr. for this team. Like, and that's what they struggle with, small ball. You can play him as a small forward, instead of be a big small forward, you can play him as a small ball power forward to back up PJ. And I think, like you said, if you're creeping up the standings, you got to do whatever you got to do to win a championship. But I think that comes at a cost with your development on OMax, because you have a gem. And I'm not saying a gem like a star, but I think you have a hidden gem with OMax who can be a backup player on a good team. He can be a backup rotation. You always see players like Boston, the Thunder, have great backups. I think OMax can be that if he had consistent minutes. You're seeing it.
Yeah, and that's the question Nico's gonna have to answer. The other part of this is, what if OMax is part of a deal, right? Like, if another team sees his value, and if, to your point,
who's coming back,
if the Mavericks are in that area where they're contending for a 4th or 5th spot, within the playoffs as we get closer to the trade deadline, they go on a run here, the next couple of weeks, and a team says, look, we'll give you X player, but we want OMax part of the deal. Is that something Nico's willing to do? This is going to be a really interesting trade deadline, because I feel like the last few years we've kind of known what this team was. There's been injuries, but we haven't really, we haven't seen Luka miss this kind of time, in a while. And then you couple that with Kyrie being hurt, Lively getting hurt. This next stretch of a couple of weeks is going to be really, really telling for what the Mavs are going to do. This is going to be really interesting.
Really interesting, and I'm on the fence of leaning towards not doing anything compared to doing something. But this is Nico. He's done something every trade deadline. So I know something's going to come about, but at the same time, you just went to the finals, and I know I know each year is different. Each season's different. But you did just go to the finals and they already changed the roster. I don't want you touched on this a little bit, but if you make the wrong move, not just playing wise, but chemistry wise, it changes everything in the dynamic of the team. Because if you
100%.
bring someone in, they're gonna think, hey, I gotta play my way because that's why they brought me here. And that might conflict with a style of Najee. That might conflict with a style of PJ, where they're used to their roles. And with a guy like OMax, you don't need a guy who can hoop. You need a guy who's just on the court because he makes plays that are not on the stat sheet. And now you're seeing plays that are on the stat sheet. So that's why I lean towards not doing anything and just banking on hoping this team gets healthy. Because they're really good when healthy. Like you said, they're a top team. They're a top 3 team or a four team at worst when healthy. But at the same time, it's tough. Like you said, who's coming back? Because then you can throw OMax in there. Because I don't think, just personal opinion, I don't think OMax is a starter in this league. But I think he has the potential to be a great backup on even a contender. Even he could start on the lottery team, but I'm talking about good teams. I think he has the potential to be one of those role players that you look back on and you say, dang, that was a good player right there. Just like how you do with Isaiah Joe and those type of players on the Thunder. I think that could be his potential.
Yeah, I don't doubt that at all. And I think if the Mavericks do end up keeping him or utilizing him more, I think he fits that exactly what they want to do. I mean, he gives you, look, to your point, that physicality. He's got that, that intensity that they want off the bench. It's just, it's going to depend on where this team is, man. Like, I think you've got to really, it's going to depend over the next few weeks. Like,
he could be like a Al-Farouq Aminu.
Yeah, who's a valuable piece. Like, Al-Farouq Aminu was a great bench player. He's, and you, to your point, you look at every NBA team, like, you've got to have people like that off the bench, right? Like, you need that in your rotation. You've got to have these, these kind of spark plugs, guys that can come in and give you valuable minutes and be consistent. And we've seen OMax, enhance his game. Every time he's on the court, it feels like he's getting better and better. Yeah. And so, we're not seeing the struggles of, like we did with Josh Green, where it's like, okay, looks like he's regressed or now he's playing better. OMax, it's like every game he plays, he's getting, you can see the development.
Yeah.
You can see the growth, right? He's more confident in his shot. He's taking better shots now. He's getting into the paint. He's utilizing that body type that he's got to give himself an advantage. And so if he can, he's going to get more playing time, over the next few weeks as the Mavs deal with injuries. So,
and financially, and they're about to pay Grimes. They're about to pay PJ. They're about to pay when Lively's contract's up in a few years. Like, you need guys like OMax.
Cheap rookie. Yep, you need to have a cheap rookie on your. That's how you build. You pay your star players, but you've got to put the right role players around them, and draft well. We've seen other teams do it. Golden State's done it. We saw Cleveland, do it when they were going to their title runs. And so you've got to, if there's one thing I know, it's that I have full faith in Nico Harrison. Because he's made all the right moves since he's been here. So I don't doubt that whatever he does is going to be the right move.
He's made way more good moves than bad moves, and that's what you want, 100%. Especially as even as a rookie GM. Like, he was really good, so that gives you hope. I agree 100% with you. It's just, you got to have the Spurs mindset. Like, when guys are over 30, and I'm talking role players, like, you can't say Kyrie, Luke, you can't say Clay, you can't say Luka. Like, Clay right now is a role player, but you're not going to get rid of Clay after he left the Warriors. That's why I have to say that. But when guys hit 30 as role play backups, you got to let them go. And to keep the money right. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, so with Gafford, with Grimes, like, you got to keep them until they're 30. Like, and that's how I feel if you want a contender. And that's what the Spurs kind of did. Once their backups were 30, they replaced them with like rookies and like hidden gems from overseas. Like,
well, they would draft well, where like those rookies could learn under these players, and as soon as they would hit 30, they
go somewhere else. Jonathan Simmons, like all those guys.
Yep, you would let them walk, and then you've got these guys off the bench that have been in the system for 2-3 years. Now we're 24, 25 years old. Guess what? They're doing, they're giving you the same productivity that your veterans were giving you. and now they're veterans in the league. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah, because if you bring in guys who are cap heavy off the bench, like you don't even have. I know you have the richest richest owners in the league, but there's still a salary cap, and there's still aprons. So like they have a capologist who's making all this work right now. But when PJ comes up and when Lively comes up, those type of, and Grimes, you're gonna have to play like a Josh Green type of contract. So like eventually you're gonna have to let Max, like you're gonna have to let guys who make money in over 30 off the bench. You got to clean sweep and just keep the young guys.
Maxi, Dinwiddie, Powell, like these guys aren't going to be on the roster forever, right? Like they're all, you could see them off the team by next year. Are they part of trade packages this year?
Yeah.
Who knows? But guys like Jaden Hardy, and Hardy got his money, and OMax, those are two guys that you've got in-house that can replace the production you're getting, off the bench from guys like Spencer and Maxi. So you're absolutely right. The Mavericks, and look, we've seen it the last few years. They've made the right moves. Everyone questioned the Dinwiddie move or the Kyrie move. That's worked out perfectly, for this team. Nico getting PJ and Gafford last year at the deadline worked out perfectly. He identified the mistake. Grant Williams wasn't it. So what do? Pivot. I'm going to make. Let me go in a different direction. Him understanding that, every Mavericks fan should have full confidence in that he's going to do the right thing.
Yeah, and the reason I say that is like, let's just say they try to go get Jordan Clarkson, a guy who can handle the ball off the bench. For sure he can handle the ball. He can go get a bucket, so you don't have to rely on Hardy and Dinwiddie, or you have to trade Hardy. But I'm at the same time, with his age, would you rather have him Hardy at $8 million or Clarkson at $14 million, and you're just wrapping up the cap space when you don't have money for these players?
Yeah, I mean, a situation like that, like in my mind, I'd rather have Jaden Hardy, right?
With the
age, they give you the same, relative production. I mean, I get, the allure of Jordan Clarkson, but yeah, there's a lot of other factors that go into it, right? It's not just, hey, this guy's playing well this year. It's what's the money? What is his next contract going to look like? Are you going to have him just for the stretch run? Like, are you going to re-sign him as a free agent? Like what? There's a lot of different factors that go into it. And then it's, what are you giving up? Like, do you have the confidence in Jaden Hardy, or is this kind of like we've got to put him in this package to get this player? Like, is that player that much better than what with the production you're getting? Or, this is why it's tough. This is why it's hard. This is why you and I are not in the front office.
Yes, because Nico's job is tough because he has expectations now. He was just willing and dealing to get the team better. Now they are good. So now you have to sustain it.
Yep, you got to get back.
This ain't 2K. Like, these are players and human beings. Like, this is tough, and they're making real money. This ain't 2K where you can just 100%. Trade whoever. So that's why I say keep your young players, even though sometimes they'll make your head spin watching the games. But I would keep Hardy, I would keep Grimes, I would keep Najee, and I would keep Gafford because they're all in their mid-20s or younger, and you can grow with that. You can find ways because most of the time they will come back at the same price. It's tough to get big contracts. Even Grimes, he's having flashes, but you can't see that. Like, even Austin Reeves couldn't get much. Like, you can't, for backups, it's hard to get a bag, because even starters, it's hard to get a bag. So I think you got to keep the younger ones and then see what's out there for the older ones.
Couldn't agree more.
All right. So that's our episode. We appreciate y'all joining in. We'll see what happens this week. It's going to be brutal. But we'll see what happens. Every game is always a surprise in a good way or bad way with this team during this injury bug. So we appreciate y'all tuning in. Make sure y'all like and subscribe. We're greatly appreciated for the continued support. Goodbye, everyone.